Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wow 11. I am Paige Hattie, the director of Mobius Connect, and I'm super excited to welcome you to our session for this afternoon or today, early morning, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for being here. So we've got predictive analytics taking asset condition monitoring to another level in store for you today, presented by the great Taha bin Mahmood. So thank you guys all for joining us. That being said, if anybody has any questions throughout the webinar here today, go ahead and drop them in the question panel on your GoToWebinar screen, or webinar screen rather. Oh my goodness, new platform, the things you learn, I swear. It'll take me a few to get over that one, guys, I think. So drop your questions in your webinar panel. We'd love to see them. We'll save some time at the very end of today's session for you. So that being said, I'm going to bring on our presenter for today. Taha, are you there with us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Awesome. Yes, we can. Welcome to Wow 11. So Taha, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you. Let's just get your screen. And you are all good to go when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. So, can you guys see my screen page?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So, guys, as Paige was too kind to introduce me, I'll just reiterate what she said. The name's Taha bin Mahmood, and I have been a technical consultant in the field of reliability engineering for more than 8 years now, specializing in condition monitoring programs and asset management programs. Uh, by qualifications, I am an engineer and an MBA. And for the past 4 years or so, I have been involved in implementing predictive analytics software suites for clients in partnership with GE from the platform of Octopus Digital, formerly called Embrick AI. So this is basically a bit about me, and moving on, we'll dive straight into the actual webinar itself. Before going into that, a disclaimer. This is something that I always do bring up in my presentations, that this is not a research, and please refrain from calling it as such. This is purely an experiential and theoretical learning of myself, right? So moving on, the agenda for the whole webinar is basically comprised of three main points. First is that we'll be touching upon the basics of maintenance itself. I know that you guys are really cool, especially when it comes to maintenance, and you may have been experienced and may not like it that we are reviewing the basics, but please forgive me because there might be some cases who may not be as much aware as you guys are. So I request your patience regarding that. Secondly, we'll dive deeper into what the actual system and processes are when it comes to predictive analytics. And then we'll touch upon a couple of cases that I have come across in my experience uh, leveraging this particular technology. And once that is complete, the floor will be open for your questions. Okay. So first of all, since we are talking about predictive maintenance and condition-based maintenance, we need to first understand what maintenance actually is, and it's simply the efforts that we do to keep and or restore assets in a condition that fulfills the required standards of performance that are expected from them, right? So, broadly speaking, they can be classified into two types. Their first being reactive maintenance, second being preventive maintenance. Reactive, simply put, is referred when we strategize to fix or replace when an asset breaks. Preventive is simply preventing the failure from occurring altogether, right? So expanding on to the preventive maintenance, this can be classified into two types. First being the schedule based, which is often called PMs in general plant terms. Uh, there is simply a list of tasks that that we do on a schedule based, whether it's time based or maybe our running hours based, or some sort of time based calculation, adhering to a specific schedule for that particular task. Secondly, uh, then comes the question of condition based maintenance, often called condition monitoring, or sometimes even referred to as predictive maintenance, which basically takes maintenance decision based on the condition of equipment, assessing it at regular intervals, predicting the remaining life for the asset after each assessment. Right. So I hope you guys are with me so far. Now, based maintenance, as I said previously, that for this type of maintenance, we take maintenance decision based on the condition of equipment, right? We do assessment of condition of the equipment at regular intervals and try to predict the remaining life after each assessment or in each assessment. Basically, we leverage on different types of condition monitoring techniques to gauge the health of the equipment. First, first being lubal analysis, secondly vibration analysis, thermal imaging, ultrasound, and the list can go on and on. You guys will be aware of it. But these four are generally the top-notch technologies that are used to assess the condition of the equipment. Right now, the objective is simply that for those who are not aware, this is a simple PF curve where this red point indicates the moment of failure or when the equipment breaks down, and the whole green line is the pathway that the equipment condition goes through during a certain amount of time. uh, it is a more generalized version of PF interval, but it could vary from case to case. But this is the general term. The idea behind the condition-based maintenance approach is simply to capture the failure uh, as soon as possible, right? When the equipment condition starts deteriorating, uh, to catch the failure at that point, right? Now, but you guys see that there is a whole gap between the 2 points, the point of origin for the green line and the point at which we detect the problem in the equipment, right? So the objective is to basically move towards the left side of the curve as much as possible so that we can gauge the problems as early as possible. We can plan out our remedial actions as early as possible, and maybe perhaps even or eliminate the problem altogether as soon as it is detected. Maybe it could be the case of some operation associated problem, so we can just alter the parameters a bit to facilitate the machine operation for longer asset life, right? That's where predictive analytics comes in. As you can see, by leveraging this technology, we have tried to move towards the left side of the curve and trying to capture the failure uh, as soon as it starts developing. Let's just put it that way, right? Now, what predictive analytics is it's basically using machine learning technology to predict the condition or behavior of the asset in the next time instance, right? From the moment that we capture the data point at one period of time till let's say till the second moment of capture, we can by leveraging this technology we can successfully try to gauge what kind of condition should the asset be in the next point in time, right? And if some deviation occurs, then it means that there's a problem, and that's what we are targeting to mitigate, right? So, and another advantage of this particular using this technology is that instead of looking at assets in isolation, which is a common practice, especially when it comes to condition monitoring, it may not be the case in some of your plants, but it is for majority of the case. Uh, I can vouch for that since I am from services background, so I have seen it being implemented in that way, right? So this basically utilizes the set of instrumentation that is available and are being transferred to the control system for controlling, and is basically termed as tags. And they utilize this sensor information and try and correlate it with the machine condition, uh, and providing basically the target is to provide a more holistic view of the physical assets health, and to consider it as a part of system rather than it being considered as a standalone asset, right? So, what basically are the advantages of predictive analytics over traditional condition monitoring? First, it automates your process of alert generations. If it were the case that predictive analytics, some sort of predictive analytics software suite is implemented in your plant for certain assets, especially the critical ones, you will get an automated alert generation should any deviation occurs from uh, its routine or its ideal behavior, right? It can be altered with it can it majority of the software suites have the option to customize it as per your preference. So but it is an option available for majority of the cases. It basically not only automates your alert generation process, it also defines the severity of the alerts, whether it's a highly critical alert and needs to be attended really quickly, or it's an alert that may be looked into over a period of time, and that sort of thing. It also provides sort of a failure recording system where you can log in the actions that were performed against any alert generation and what were the recommendations provided to begin with. uh, Next thing is that these are self-learning systems. I mean, with the advent of AI, everything is basically self-learning nowadays, right? And it's basically loops on itself, and it's basically improves on itself. It Like I said before, it provides a system level perspective to the causes of failure, which helps you out in identifying the root cause of failures. uh, System assists in monitoring multiple assets at a time. I mean, an operation guy or an operator can only they humans have certain limitations, right? So they can only monitor a certain number of assets diligently at a time instance. Whereas by leveraging this technology and automating this process, you can simultaneously monitor multiple assets uh, quickly and vigilantly. Lastly, it provides you an option to monitor your assets remotely, right? Not just within, not just outside the city, but across border and across continents even, right? We know of several such organizations that have centralized monitoring divisions that are used to monitor their sites across multiple continents. Right now, when we talk about advantages, then definitely we should touch upon the disadvantages as well. Basically, uh, the disadvantage is that you cannot eliminate human intervention altogether. You still have to rely on on-prem or on-field analysis by some expert, especially when you have to dive deeper into the actual monitoring or actual usage of condition monitoring techniques. I mean, you can trigger an alert, ideally speaking, or that the bearing vibration has increased and the subsequent temperatures for bearing temperatures, lube oil temperatures have increased, but you might still require some on-prem analysis, especially for vibration analysis and lube oil analysis to be carried out by the site team. Secondly, the implementation itself is a bit complex and requires a certain skill set, which is sort of something that uh, a customer may need to have a look at on when especially when considering the implementation of this particular type of software, right? And uh, especially since it minimizes your efforts in performing your job, there is a certain chance that too much reliance on this particular software suite may leave the manpower less vigilant, right? They may become a bit more relaxed, especially when tackling critical assets, which could be again harmful for the customer themselves. Lastly, since it's everything is interconnected nowadays, and there's a heavy usage of internet in our daily lives, there is a high dependence on internet connectivity for this as well. And should it be the case that something might happen uh, on, for instance, regarding the internet connectivity and all that kind of stuff, then definitely it will become bit more troublesome for the plant folks, or for even for the monitoring team to monitor the assets then, no? Secondly, since we've talked about what predictive analytics actually is, let's dive deeper into the process of it. The process starts, or the implementation for process for the predictive analytics starts with the first step, that is the data acquisition, and it's all about getting the data from the asset to the cloud. Right? I am talking specifically about the on cloud solutions, which is basically the case for majority of the software suites available out there. So that's why, in order to uh, be more as generic as possible, I opted to choose on cloud solutions. So the steps involved are fairly simple. You have an asset. The asset has certain types of sensors installed. These sensors are providing their inputs to the controller, that is the DCS, and the controller itself might have an OPC system installed, OPC server installed downstream of it as well, but I haven't shown it. So for simplicity, let's just assume that the data from the asset goes to the controller, then it goes to the edge device, and which in turn supplies that information to the cloud, right? And where you have the software suite available, which can be used for your monitoring and diagnostic purposes. The second step from the after data acquisition is basically the digital twin creation, especially when it comes to Industry 4.0. This is quite a buzzword that is seen commonly nowadays. So basically, it's once you have gotten the data from all the sensors that are there in the plant on the cloud, then you need to segregate those tags asset wise, right? You need to build a system, and you need to segregate the tags according to the requirements of the system, and supply the system with the information that which tags are actually part of that asset and its consequent system, so that the software may know where the boundary lies, especially when it comes to monitoring the system, right? So, for instance, a typical pump might have vibration sensors, temperature sensors, uh, uh, pressure and flow pressure and flow sensors, and temperature sensors at the section and its discharge. It may have temperature sensors at its motor winding. It could be the case that it may have amperes. So this is quite a simplistic view, since I have not considered, or basically I have just to provide you a grand picture. I'll say that it could be the case that may have suction vessel installed at the upstream of this pump, which may have its own level tags or level sensors and temperature sensors, and downstream of it could be the case that it may have even more sensors. It could be the case that it may have a buffer tank and that sort of thing. So it gets a bit more complex. For simplicity, I've just shown you a single asset rather than displaying a system which may get a bit more complex to explain to, right? Post this step of digital coin creation, then comes the step of the actual monitoring and diagnostic aspect of these assets, and it's all about predicting the failures at early as possible for these assets. There are certain steps involved for on which the first primary step is the data cleansing. Those guys that are familiar with how data analytics and how data storage works know that it is a crucial part of it, especially when it comes to analytics, so that you only have the good data available rather than it being a mix of both good and bad data. Then comes a part of training the actual data, uh, yeah, and developing certain models which can be used to which can be linked with some sort of algorithms that may be formed, which in turn may be used to monitor the alerts that are generated by the systems. So this is a bit. This was a bit about the system itself. Now we'll come down to the efficacy of it by seeing the system in action. These are two of the cases that we have come across uh, during our analysis, and it might interest you. One is the case for a boiler feed pump for a power gen client. Uh, the problem that they detected was bearing temperature rise because of the cooling loss. So what actually happened was that this was the pump, which has certain instrumentation installed with it. When seen in a global view of the system, we see that this particular pump had lube oil supply a lube oil system associated with it as an auxiliary system, which had an associated heat exchanger, right, which was supplied with cooling water by uh, by a dedicated cooling water system to it as well, right? So what actually happened was that a temperature rise of 5 degree was observed at motor non-drive end, well below the customer alarm limits. But since it was a gradual increase, and it was not something that was norm for the system, a trigger was alert, and when we saw when we diagnosed it a bit further, we saw that the temperature had increased for all four bearings, but it wasn't up to 5 degree centigrade. It was just around maybe 2 degrees centigrade at one point, or 3 degrees centigrade at another bearing. But the temperature had increased at all points. So when we dug deeper into it, we found out that at some point in time, when the asset was off duty, the due to some maintenance work at close proximity, the valves the valves that basically link the cooling water supply to the heat exchanger got pinched or throttled, uh, as a result of which basically the cooling water flow to the heat exchanger got disturbed, and hence we saw the rise in metal temperatures for all the bearings, right? So once we diagnosed it, we rectified it. uh, the consequence, or had it been the case that it was not identified, the consequence would have been twofold. First would be the operational consequence, where operation might have got disturbed, the steam uh, quality may have deteriorated, and asset would have had to be taken out of service. Not to mention the maintenance cost that would have possibly uh, been incurred by the plant themselves to rectify this issue, right? So since we diagnosed it, the result of it was that equipment downtime was prevented. As a result of it, um, for several avenues of revenue or losses were mitigated, and avoided, thus increasing the profitability and keeping the operation as stable as possible, right? The second is related to the cooling circulating water pump, where again a bearing temperature rise was noted, this time due to the lubrication issue. So what happened was that we had a circulating water pump where we saw temperature rise of 6 degree at motor non-drive and bearing metal temperature, and no significant change was observed at other points of the bearing. So we deduced that it may be a lubrication issue. We vetted it and verified it with on-prem analysis as well. And once this bearing was properly lubricated, the temperatures went down, and the operation of this asset went on smoothly and did not face any unprecedented downtime. Right. Again, consequences was possible operational loss and maintenance loss, which were avoided altogether, leading the plant to prevent unnecessary downtime and mitigating associated costs. So this is basically all regarding the presentation. Uh, Big shout out to sketchfab.com and unsplash.com that provided me with some awesome visuals for you guys, and thanks to Adobe Stock Photos as well for again providing me with necessary pictures to make my presentation. So this is it. Basically, over to you, Paige. The floor uh, could be open for Q&As.
Perfect. Thank you, Taha, so much for that great presentation. And again, wonderful visuals. So that was awesome. So everybody, we're going to go ahead and open it up for the Q&A session now. So if you haven't already, go ahead and submit your questions in the question panel, and we'll take a few minutes here to make sure we get you some of your answers. So let's look and see what has come in so far. So Taha, one of the questions that came in while you were presenting, this person is asking, who tags the data, a human or an algorithm?
Uh, who takes the data? I actually don't get what you meant by that. See, the process is that basically in terminology, in instrumentation terminology, tags are referred to the inputs and outputs of the controllers, right? So this is what I meant by tags, right? The output that is generated from the controller, that is one tag, and the input that we get to the controller, that is another tag, right? So what I meant by tags uh, is this: basically the alert generation is done automatically. We have basically people build algorithms, or rather organizations build algorithms that facilitate you monitor your assets with the help of the inputs that you get from the sensors, or the tags from the controllers. So this is basically what I meant by it. Hope that answer your question. If you still have any query, please feel free to send your query to Paige, who can in turn forward it to me. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Taha. Okay. So then our next question up here. So this person is asking, does self-learning mean the algorithm can decide when the data has shifted enough to retrain itself?
Uh, no, not necessarily. What the algorithm, it varies from software suite to software suite. Honestly, what algorithm I have used, it basically self trains itself. For instance, should it come across any instance that is not included in the original model, but it does not trigger any of the alerts or any of the uh, diagnostic rules that were put in the algorithm, then uh, it may include that particular timestamp or that particular point in its models, so that should it come across these points in future, then it may not be something that may trigger an unnecessary alert for customer themselves.
Okay, great. Thank you, Taha. Okay, these are wonderful questions, guys. So keep them coming if you have any more. Taha, another question that just came in. This person is wondering if you could share some of the distinctions between a first principle model and digital twins. They're asking, is one asset-based and the other system-based?
So first principle modeling, uh, let me put it this way. There are two types of modeling. First is first principle modeling, that is more physics based modeling, right? And then there is an empirical based modeling, that is more stats based modeling, right? So there are these are two separate sort of things, and each software provider has their preferences when it comes to developing their solution. So this is basically the different point of differentiation between the two. Uh, Apart from that, digital twins is basically sort of developing a virtual replica of your asset, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with what technique you will be using to model your assets. uh, what digital twin mean is basically creating like I said before, creating a virtual replica of your asset over the cloud or over any other body. And how to monitor it, that's entirely a different thing. Which models, which technology or which principle you use to model your algorithms and monitoring techniques is an entirely different thing. It could be either first principle based or empirical based model, right? First principle, like I said, being more physics oriented, and empirical based being more stats oriented. Hope that answers the question.
It did. Wonderful. All right. So it looks like we've got another question here. If anybody else has any more questions, keep them coming. If not, this may be our last question for today. But Taha, this person is wondering, how do you select which algorithm to use? And they're asking, are there a catalog of algorithms?
Uh, no. Basically, that's what you have data scientists for, right? Uh, if you are going for a customized software suite, then definitely you will have to leverage their knowledge base and provide them with the data so that they may be able to build models around that. Apart from that, there are many software suites and solutions available out there that have already done this work for you. They have a dedicated team of data scientists and data analytics experts who have developed these algorithms for you uh, in conjunction with the industry experts, right? So they've only taken care of that part. What what needs to be done is simply to what is needed is to simply implement those software suites according to your site's install base, right? So this is the part that these software basically software suites rely on customers for. Apart from that, the algorithms have already been developed. Some are patented by the organizations themselves. And should it be the case that you want to develop these algorithms for yourselves, then uh, employing data scientists or leveraging their knowledge base would be the right path to go for. Okay.
Okay, great. Well said, Taha. Thank you so much. All right, so let's see here if we've got anybody else in the audience that has any questions, go ahead and use this time here to get them entered. Otherwise, Taha, how can our audience members reach out to you? How can they learn more? How can they get in touch?
Well, you guys are always welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. Uh, I can uh, I can send my personal email address to Paige as well, who can in turn send it out to you guys. And should you guys have any query, feel free to reach out to me personally regarding that. Right, I'm available on LinkedIn as well, so you can connect with me there as well. Okay.
Perfect. Well, Taha, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very late at night for you. So again, thank you so much for hanging out with us and for presenting, being a part of WOW 11. It's always a pleasure. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time and effort into this great presentation.
My pleasure, Paige. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And everybody in our audience, thank you as well for joining us today. We really appreciate you. Before you leave us for today, let me just share a few brief pieces of information with you here. So if you haven't already heard or attended one of our prior WOW sessions, to invite you to join us for our live conferences. So we have one coming up in just a few weeks in Monterrey, Mexico, and then one at the end of the year in Perth, Australia. So if you're near either of those locations, we would love to see you live and in person. You can save 50% on your conference pass using the code WOW50. So again, the code is WOW50. Feel free to join us if you're close to those regions. If not, stay tuned for new 2024 dates and locations. We'll be coming to more places, hopefully near you next year as well. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, remember that discount code. We'll drop it in an email after the webinar is completed here today as well. And then coming up next, we have one more session left today, using HD technologies for process optimization and condition monitoring in smart mines, presented by Hakan Heedland of SPM Instruments. So another great session. Hakan has presented many a time with us before, and he always delivers. So if you haven't already signed up, just jump back into the attendee hub. You don't need to make any extra registration steps. You can just click on the Join Now button. We'll be getting started here in about an hour and 20 minutes or so for this one. So wherever you are, if you're interested, go ahead and join. If not, along with Taha's presentation, Hakan's presentation will be available almost instantaneously in the on-demand library, which we will also include in an email to you. The link, you can access that through the attendee hub as well. All of the sessions from this week from WOW 11 will be accessible to you in that on-demand library. So be sure to either attend with us live or tune in for that. Again, we will be sending you a follow-up email with that on-demand library access in addition to your certificate of attendance for joining us here this week. So thank you guys again all so much for tuning into today's presentation. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, we hope that we'll find you in the Mobius Connect community. If you're not already there, you can join us at mobiusconnect.com. You can also follow us on all major social media networks at Mobius Connect to stay up to date with the latest community happenings. And if you guys need any support whatsoever, feel free to reach out to myself, our Mobius Connect team, whether it's about WOW 11, whether you're looking to get more involved, or you have a topic suggestion that you'd like to hear about in the future, feel free to reach out to us. We always love to hear your feedback. You can reach us at info@mobiusconnect.com. And again, if you'd like an introduction to Taha, reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to make a connection. So reach out to us there. Otherwise, guys, we'll be in touch soon. I hope to see you at another WOW 11 session this week. But in the meanwhile, stay safe and have a good rest of your day. We'll see you soon.